Honourable members, I now call on the Honourable Attorney-General and Minister for Economy, Civil Service and Communications to speak and reply. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, there's a whole lot of matters that I do need to respond to because members of the opposition have raised a number of supposedly issues on their part, but of course a lot of misinformation has gone along with it. In fact, probably 99% of that. It is very interesting, Mr. Speaker, sir, that members have neglected to acknowledge the fact that every year, since FDB has been created, all governments have been approving the guarantee for the FDB to be able to go out into the market and actually borrow money. Honourable Prasad should know this, and he wanted to know what interest rates they would get in terms of the bond issue or the promissory notes. Obviously, that's determined by the market. Any basic economist would be able to tell you that. He talked about the interest rates. Again, it depends on how much you borrow the money for, but I did indicate in my introduction of the motion that generally the market rate recently has been slightly above 4% at which they borrow, and they lend on an average around about 7%. And the members of the opposition fail to also acknowledge the fact and understand that when you have a divergent or when you have a mixture of your lending portfolio to different sectors in the economy, you are able to get different interest rates. So, for example, many of the food production companies in Fiji, the one down in Lemi, I think it's called Pacific Foods, George Patel and them, the original funding of that factory came through FDB. Now, when they lend to commercial entities, this is during the Garase time and various other people when they're CEOs, even the Harry Punjas of this world have borrowed from FDB and various other institutions. They set up those companies, and the interest rates that were charged by FDB was higher than what they would charge a farmer. And that's what you call cross-subsidization. And that's how FDB has worked. And in fact, you will find in the previous budgets also that the government has also at times subsidized interest rates for people in the primary sector. So if FDB was going to, for example, lend at 4% to a farmer, government may step in and say, look, lend to them at 3%, we will subsidize the 1% interest rate that you are foregoing. That's how the system works. Now, I also wanted to highlight the issue about, Honourable Randondro made a big song and dance about, somebody sleeping on the job in FDB, etc. That normally when we give the guarantee, we are able to then give the management of FDB the ability to go out and borrow into the market. They don't automatically issue bonds to the full amount of the guaranteed amount. So, if these people want to come and talk about FDB, you need to understand it. Honourable Tui Sawau, who claims to be some sort of an expert, should know this. And I've got the figures here. In 2018, this Parliament had approved $160 million worth of guarantees. Utilization of that was $143 million. 2019, $160 million again. Utilization, $138 million. 2020, $160 million guarantee, utilization $145 million. So in the same way, to say that the guarantees ended in February, therefore FDB did not have any funds, is incorrect. Anybody who knows how the FDB works would know that the management, always in anticipation of the lapse sometimes in the parliamentary sitting, etc., would have enough funds raised through the market to be able to continue their funding. So again, it's incorrect to say that. Now, Honourable Randondro talked about, the glory days. Well, firstly, he talked about this motion, not being informed. He should have talked to his whip. When we had the business committee meeting on Monday, we actually made it known that there will be various guarantee motions brought about, including the FDB. Honourable Gioni Barabi was there too. Maybe you guys need to communicate a bit more. The other issue, Mr. Speaker, so he talked about the glory days of FDB. What glory days? The MCOL glory days, post-87? Where are those supermarkets today? The Class A shares funded through FDB to only privileged Itauke people in Fiji? That was funded through them, and I only say Itauke because the shares in Fijian holdings can only be bought by Itauke people. Where is that money? How was that approved? Who benefited from it? Who were part of the management then? These are the glory days. This is the glory day, Mr. Speaker, sir. When Honorable Prime Minister was Minister for Finance prior to 2014, and even post that, hundreds of loans had to be written off the books because the balance sheet of FDB did not look good at all. There were so many bad debts on the books. This is the glory day, Honorable Tui Sawau, you're talking about. You see, this is the problem. People come to this chamber without clean hands. And they pontificate here about it. Mr. Speaker, sir, now I have this thing about, let me just deal with this. The CEO of Fiji Airways is actually a financial expert. The loan given to Fiji Airways was prior to his appointment as the chairperson. Where is the conflict? Where is the conflict? He did not sit on the board to approve the loan. And again, there's been so much made of this about how FDB has lent to Fiji Airways.
What's coming, man?
The reliance of the Fijian economy on the tourism sector is about 40%. The reliance of thousands of tens of thousands of Fijians on the tourism sector is there. The reliance of the tourism sector on a national carrier is critical. So isn't it worth our while to protect the Fijian carrier? The New Zealand government gave $900 million to Air New Zealand from direct budget support. Direct budget support from taxpayers' funds allocated through the budget. We have not done that, but we've taken another path, we've given a guarantee. In other words, there's no immediate call on the finances. In the event, should there be a default, then the guarantee kicks in. And I'd like to clarify, Honorable Nawaikula, when I said there has been no call on the guarantee, it was in relation to FDB. You should listen a lot more clearly. In my introduction of the motion, I said, never has there been a call on the guarantee in respect of FDB. And again, there's been this call about expatriates. This obsession with expatriates. I remember a few years ago, when we had the permanent secretaries, they objected to the permanent secretaries, some of them being expatriates. We said that it will peter out. We need to appoint the right people to get the ball rolling, build the capacity. But they have not thought anything about it. Today, Mr. Speaker, sir, out of the 19 odd permanent secretaries, only one is a foreign national. 2 of them hold dual citizenship, including Fijian citizenship. The others are all Fijians. But they have no problem when Ben Ryan is appointed as the 7th coach, John McKee is appointed as the 17th coach, Jennifer Brazil is appointed as a netball coach, Fleming Srestavel is appointed as a football coach. No problem with that. Because they are the best people to get our people coached. So you go out and get the best people. Why should the same standards not be applied, if it can be applied for sports, for our bureaucracies? Mr. Speaker, sir. Now, there's some noise coming, obviously not relevant. Mr. Speaker, sir, the point is, and I would like to commend Honorable Prasad for the first time. He said something appropriate yesterday, and he talked about that when you appoint people on merit, that you end up getting what we call inclusivity. Honorable Tui Sawau wants to quote New Zealand. What has been the indigenous experience in New Zealand? The Maoris only own 5.4, 5.6% of the land in New Zealand. In Fiji, it's 91%. Why did they have a Waitangi Treaty? Because there was a war. They did not want the Pākehā to come to New Zealand. They fought them. Fiji's experience is completely different. So put it into context. Mr. Speaker, sir,
why are you dismissing
the other point,
Why?
Mr. Speaker, sir, irrelevant what you're saying. Mr. Speaker, sir, I've addressed those issues. I want to now get on to the issue about the glory days, or just one more point I wanted to make. Under the SDL government, when the MOMI project was started, FDB lent to the MOMI project, FNPF lent to the MOMI project, a project handled by a gentleman from New Zealand who was in prison, who was subsequently incarcerated by the New Zealand government because he was essentially a con man. And guess what, Mr. Speaker, sir? Even though the loan component of the loan to MOMI, Honourable Charlie would know this, I think he was chairman then, FNPF had a higher amount lent to this particular project. FDB had a lower amount lent, nonetheless a significant amount, but guess who was managing the loan? FDB. FDB was the manager of this fund. And guess what, Mr. Speaker, sir? There were people within the FDB management who got landscaping contracts whilst working at FDB. Whilst working at FDB, and FDB had lent them the money. What's the conflict there? Mr. Speaker, sir, the reality of the matter is that we were able to salvage the situation through a law that was passed, and today MOMI is now a success, the Marriott as we know it. Mr. Speaker, sir, the issue about Fiji Airways, Mr. Speaker, has been brought up, and I need to address that because there is actually a motion tomorrow too regarding that. Mr. Speaker, sir, just one other point. As I've mentioned in the introduction, the agriculture portfolio of FDB constitutes 81.6% of the total number of loan accounts and 41.19% of total value of bank portfolio. So whilst 81% of the loan accounts are agriculture, it holds about total value of 41.19%. No doubt it needs to increase. But as Honourable Reddy pointed out, in Fiji, and Honourable Gavoka talked about, we are all into subsistence farming. Countries that have done really well in agriculture actually have gone into large-scale commercial farming. And one of the ironies in Fiji has been for decades, since the colonial times, is that for agricultural leases, you would only get a 30-year lease. I can go and lease Itauke land, Crown land, or state land, as we call it now, for tourism, residential, industrial, commercial, for 99 years. But the moment it came to agriculture, 30 years. So no bank used the lease on agricultural land as collateral. This is why farming in Fiji has always been held back, because the level of capitalization has been minimized. It's a fact. That's why the level of mechanization is limited, and that's a fact, because the farmers don't have the ability to be able to borrow cheaper funds. We only had simply crop liens. National Bank of Fiji used to have crop liens, and then Colonial had crop liens. So, Mr. Speaker, so there's a historic context to that, and we need to be able to understand that. And Honourable Nawaikula cannot talk about agriculture investment when he opposes, or would oppose, or may have opposed previously, about granting long-term leases. In fact, he was quite instrumental in ensuring that a lot of leases weren't renewed.
Yes, yes.
Quite instrumental in that. He went to Vanuatu with people like Garikau. It's a fact. We all know that. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other matter that I'd like to highlight also, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that issue about FDB. FDB has actually been given concessional finance from RBF. RBF has lent to the FDB at 1%. And the reason why RBF has lent at 1% to FDB is so that FDB can then use those funds, adding their own overhead costs, and lend to the agricultural sector also. So RBF has played a pivotal role. Mr. Speaker, sir, of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, with RBF, there was some issue, I can't remember who it was that raised, and did Fiji Airways get clearance from RBF, etc. The loan was approved by the FDB board, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, on top of that, Honourable Prasad, again, I like the fact that he said the granting of the $1,000 grant was a good thing. I remember the time when we were actually giving the grants for micro enterprises, they're all opposing it. They're saying it's all handouts. And now they're saying it's a good thing. Mr. Speaker, sir. Now they're saying it's a good thing. Now there's a caveat, they're saying it's for the time being. Mr. Speaker, sir.
Context.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the other point that I also want to highlight is I wanted to clarify the issue, Mr. Speaker, sir, in respect of the total debt exposure for Fiji. They are now quoting Savenada Narumbe. Savenada Narumbe is a politician who lost miserably at the polls, twice now. Honorable Tambuya should know that they are lawyers and they are lawyers, and they are economists and they are economists. We know that, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the reality is the current nominal value of the Fijian government's debt is $7.2 billion. And, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is also what we call the guarantee liabilities, which is about $1.05 billion. And then, Mr. Speaker, sir, there is what we call explicit callable debt. And nobody ever quotes this. They have not even quoted this. Because we are members of the IBRD, which is to do with the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank, we have an exposure of $489 million. Never been called upon, but it's there. All countries that are part of it is there. None of the previous governments, whichever government you name in Fiji, have ever looked at this as a part of the debt portfolio. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have what we call implicit contingent liabilities, where we have not signed, we have not come to Parliament, there's been no formal government guarantee sought, but we would be morally perhaps obliged. Provincial councils go out and take loans. If the provincial councils default on their loans, we will be morally obliged to go and rescue them. Municipal councils take out loans. They may actually, give us some of their property as mortgage. We will be morally obliged to go and salvage that because it's in public interest. Mr. Speaker, sir. So we have also FRCS. If, for example, there are certain VAT outstanding, we will be morally obliged to pay that. But there has never come to that. Mr. Speaker, sir. National Bank of Fiji, remember the bank that failed? There's certain still debts outstanding. We have a moral obligation for about $390,000 to the NBF Asset Management Company. That's the type of contingency we're looking at. Honorable Nawaikula misquoted facts. Let me say what is the guaranteed amounts as far as 30th April 2021. This is from our debt manager, Naimea Dawai, if you want to know his name, Honorable Nawaikula, so you know I'm not pulling out figures from anywhere. Fiji Airways, $391.9 million. Fiji Development Bank, $329.5 million. Fiji Hardwood Corporation, $1.165 million. Fiji Sugar Corporation, $199.57 million. Housing Authority, $102.16 million. FBC, $6.9 million. PEFCO, $943,000, Mr. Speaker, sir. That is what we call the direct guaranteed loans. And, Mr. Speaker, sir, as I've highlighted, there's then the other loans regarding a World Bank. They're not loans, but they in terms of what we call contingent liabilities. The second two that I've quoted, which is the implicit, and the other contingent liabilities, the World Bank and ADB, is not really called upon. They have now come up with this figure of $15 billion, adding FNPF to it. No other government, no other opposition has ever said that the FNPF exposure should be added to government loans portfolio. They've never done that. But now they want to come up because Savenada Narumbe wants to be the main boy. He wants to say this is the exposure. And they're all lapping it up. No principal approach. Mr. Speaker, I urge that I be given enough time to complete my response as Honorable Prasad was actually given. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to thank Honorable Gavoka for saying that everybody should get vaccinated. And I really hope that he has a chat with Honorable Bulan Uda, who thinks we're still going to put some kind of device through the vaccine. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, it is quite shameful that here we have an opposition that's come now to Parliament and suddenly they're all talking about vaccination. KFGF, Honourable Gerengere Tambua said KFGF, the downloading of KFGF or the low rate of downloading of KFGF is an act of rebellion. That's what she said. She's quoted as saying that. We had the lawyers, Mr. Speaker,
point of order, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think I need to clarify the insinuation that the Honourable Attorney-General is making, I think, is misleading Parliament. My point about rebellion was the communication way, or the way that they communicated. Because in a pandemic, there are ways to communicate, and not by commanding, not by forcing, and not by testing our patriotism. We need to communicate in a way that is compassionate and is open. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Hansard would show otherwise, and I still say this, Mr. Speaker, sir. They actively encourage people and made statements on the floor of this chamber not to have the KFG app on. Actively. The law firm that used to represent NFP, one of their partners, wrote an article in Fiji Times questioning the KFG app, questioning the ability that we're going to step into their privacy. So many of them, of the opposition, did not actually take the KFG app on. So many of them. And they now have the audacity to come and talk about this. But I'm glad Honourable Govoko has talked about the vaccination. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other point that I wanted to highlight also is that they talked a lot about Fiji Airways. It really irks me that here we have, Mr. Speaker, sir, the national carrier, and we are trying to protect our national carrier because we want our national carrier to survive through this pandemic. Airlines have shut down throughout the world. Large airlines, Emirates, Singapore Airlines, Qantas, others have grounded planes. Staff have been laid off. They're saying air travel industry will change completely. And here we are in Fiji, the only Pacific Island country that has got the most modern fleet. And we're trying to make sure that it stays that way. Honourable Govoko said, oh, you're buying 3 new planes. He knows very well. Those orders were placed long time ago. We're only getting receiving them now. He knows that. But why do they stand up in Parliament and misrepresent it that way? As if that we are being somehow or the other reckless. Mr. Speaker, sir, when you've already placed the order and you paid for it, you're going to get delivery. It makes sense. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know he has a particular proclivity to Boeing. When we're buying the A330s, Airbus, he said we should all have one fleet. We should all have one fleet. Maybe he thinks now we should have both. But today, he said, oh, it's expensive. If you look at all professionally run airlines in the world, they have the mixture of both. They have the mixture of both. And Boeing, Mr. Speaker, sir, has what we call a deferred prosecution agreement in place with the American government. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me just quote, because of the maxes. And it says, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the deferred prosecution agreement is now public knowledge. It says the Boeing admits, and I quote, that it knowingly, as willfully, with intent to defraud, conspired and agreed together with others to defraud the United States by impairing, obstructing, defeating, and interfering with, by dishonest means, the lawful function of the FAA, Federal Aviation Authority. And there is, Mr. Speaker, sir, DPA requires Boeing to pay $2.5 billion in compensation. These are facts, Mr. Speaker, sir. So I cannot understand. We have this whole monologue about, Boeing and DPA and Airbus, etc. These are the hardcore realities that we are dealing with. Mr. Speaker, sir, The other issue that I also wanted to highlight, he said, he supports Honorable Tui Sawau's call for a inquiry. Honorable Tui Sawau talked about the Russian mafia when he talked about the Wangabuka. Talked about the Russian mafia. This is the level of imbecilic contributions we are getting. Imbecilic contributions we are getting, Mr. Speaker, sir. ADB, Mr. Speaker, sir, has lent to FJ.
Honourable Speaker, point of order. Now, please ask the Honourable Attorney-General to refrain from using unparliamentary terms like imbecilic and calling members imbecile. He needs to withdraw those comments. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
That's not.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, ADB, Honorable Nawekula quoted Savenathan Narumbe, ADB has lent to Fiji Airways. And it is the first airline it has lent to, at least in this part of the world. Mr. Speaker, sir, they use B&B Paribas. Anybody that knows about the aviation industry, it's a French-based company that does assessments of airlines. And Fiji Airways had to jump through the loops and all sorts of things to be able to meet the threshold in terms of cash flow projections, in terms of previous management. And they have received those funds, Mr. Speaker, sir. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the reality of the matter is that ADB is not going to lend money willy-nilly to some dodgy company. Please don't make out Fiji Airways to be some dodgy company. It is not. It is our national carrier. It carries our name. It's got our unique logo on the livery of the planes. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other point that I also wanted to make, they talked about the Fiji Airways debt. Let me give you a breakdown of the debt. FNPF has 30% of the debt. FDB has 10% of the debt. The German banks have 30% of the debt. ADB has 18% of the debt. And the aircraft lessors have 12%. In nominal terms, let me give you the nominal figures. FNPF, $229 million. FDB, $75 million. The German banks, $277 million. ADB, $134 million. And aircraft lessors, $47 million. These are in Fijian dollars. That's the debt portfolio of Fiji Airways. There's nothing hidden about it. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other point that I also wanted to make was I wanted to make, there's a lot of, hullabaloo about, where we've, or somebody mentioned about the rotten rice. Honorable, I think, Tui Sawau. Honorable Tui Sawau, if the person is genuine, and if you know of the person, please tell us.
Point of order.
Sorry?
Point of order, sir.
Yes. Point of order. Who's asking for point of order?
Tui Sawau.
You have the
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm referring, sir, the use of unparliamentary language, calling members imbeciles. I recall in the last parliament, somebody called a member idiot and was taken out of parliament for 1 year. Imbecile is the same as idiot. And when he's misleading parliament too with saying that I'm referring to the Russian mafia. That was a general analysis of the Irish black economy, and that's from a U.S. State Department report, which states that the Russian mafia operates in the same black economy as Wangabuka, which you, Minister of Economy, is moving Fiji into. Thank you.
Honorable member, imbecile is not an unparliamentary term.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other point I wanted to make was about the rotten rice. This video is being circulated. The person who is circulating this video does not give his or her name. They don't say where they are from. They don't even show their face. If the person is genuine and has received rice that is not good or rotten, please tell us. We'll replace it. But to have this circulating and saying that the rice is bad, but you don't want to come forward, then obviously it would mean the person is perhaps being disingenuous. We have had people, Mr. Speaker, sir, for example, who've said to us in the past, oh, you've missed our home, we need it. They give us the name, the telephone number, and we go. The same way, if this person feels aggrieved that the rice is bad, please tell us. As opposed to circulating and those of you others lapping it up. Mr. Speaker, sir, I just wanted to very quickly highlight, because there's a lot of comments being made about, COVID and lack of spending, etc. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have directly spent $300 million on COVID-19 related matters, directly. $160 million so far has been paid out in unemployment benefits through phase 2 and phase 3. $160 million, Mr. Speaker, sir. $30 million in the concessional loans for MSMEs. $10 million to the M-Pesa grant, the $90. Within a few days, they're literally, I think I've got the figures here somewhere. Number of households assisted, 37,206 in Nandi Lotoka area. Suva Nosori Lemming, 81,430. Total funds disbursed in a matter of 3 or 4 days was $10.6 million. Mr. Speaker, sir, and then of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, $100 million for HMS, or Health and Medical Services, the Fiji Police Force, RFMF and other people in the front line. $150 million has been released by FNPF on its own, Mr. Speaker, sir. Continuation of the same salary rates for civil servants, the infrastructure development, education, access to justice, social protection, welfare payments have not been stopped. Legal aid has not been stopped, Mr. Speaker, sir. Agriculture is doing its work. Mr. Speaker, sir, the point is that the machinery of government is working. And this is direct spend of $300 million in respect of, as a response to COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other, finally I'd like to say, and a lot has been made about this, and I'd like to just echo the sentiments of what Honourable Minister Koya said. They said, Honourable Nawai said, he holds the Prime Minister responsible for this latest outbreak. What nonsense. What nonsense. When there is, Mr. Speaker, sir, an outbreak in Melbourne, does the opposition people go around and saying, we hold Scott Morrison responsible? Mr. Speaker, sir, we hold Scott Morrison responsible. And this is the problem, Mr. Speaker, sir. In one breath, they make all sorts of spurious comments, imbecilic comments, and, Mr. Speaker, sir, make comments backed not by facts. Not by facts. And, Mr. Speaker, sir, they talk about bipartisanship. I just want to give a few examples, Mr. Speaker, sir, in respect of how we cannot work with them. We are diametrically opposed philosophically to them. Diametrically opposed. Mr. Speaker, sir, I highlighted some of these. Honourable Tuisawa was talking about, the New Zealand experience, but not actually comparing it. The systemic marginalization of people in non-exclusivity. Quoting figures that are completely incorrect. $15 billion debt. FNPF, the analysis, incorrect. Care Fiji app, don't use that, Mr. Speaker, sir. Opposed to outsourcing, Honourable Tambuya. She has family companies that get benefit from outsourcing of government work. Construction companies. These are all outsourcing work, Mr. Speaker, sir. They oppose that. They want big government. Here we are told in order to run efficient and effective governments, we need to have small governments, we need to outsource, because when you outsource, you create more jobs. You create a lot more jobs when you outsource. A lot more people that get money in the pocket. If a person works in the construction, for example, department, in the old infrastructure Ministry of Public Works department, that person has got limited capacity. If you have 100 people putting up a building, that's all they'll do. But if you outsource it, you can do a lot more buildings. A lot more construction, you spread the wealth. Scholarships, they wanted it on ethnicity. We want it on merit, Mr. Speaker, sir. We want it on merit, Mr. Speaker, sir. They said, about the facts not right regarding FSC. Incorrect facts again, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have then Honorable Tambuya here. Oh, where is it? I've lost it. Honorable Tambuya saying, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are having series of meetings with different facets within our economy. Next week we're meeting intend to meet, as we've discussed with MCC-TTT, meet the garment industry, meet various other industries in Fiji. We meet them in small groups. We met with one group last week, Fiji Employees Federation, Fiji Chamber of Commerce, and the governor of the Reserve Bank came in. The sewer retailers rang us up saying, we want to meet up with you. So we called them all in one group. Honorable Tambuya says, shame though that this is how our government chooses to dialogue for development. Where are the Itoke, Chinese, Rotuman, Keiloma and other ethnicities who have called Fiji home and contributing equally? Where are more women? We can do better. We must do better. This is just one group. If tomorrow the ACS old girls have their meeting, if I look at the photos, I may say, hey, where's the diversity? But we know the historical basis of ACS. If tomorrow we say, let's call all the hardware companies, the three largest companies are Gujarati companies, they'll be there. We'll say, where's the diversity? That's the historical basis. That's the contextual basis. The point that needs to be made, Mr. Speaker, sir, is when you call for meetings, when you ask for meetings, when you appoint people on merit, are you deliberately stopping people from coming to those meetings? No. The answer is no. If tomorrow we have a meeting of the RFMF, who will be there? Do we then write and say, oh, where's the diversity? No, that's the historical basis. We know that's the historical basis. There's nothing wrong. The RFMF does not stop any ethnic group from joining RFMF. The Fiji Employees Federation does not stop any group from joining Fiji Employees Federation. The Fiji Chamber of Commerce does not stop anybody from joining them. That's the historical basis of the contextual environment in which these organizations operate. Pure and simple.
Yeah, what do you think about it?
Then, Mr. Speaker, sir, to make a song and dance of it, to put an ethnic tinge to it, is why we are diametrically opposed to them. So how can they talk about bipartisanship when there's such huge philosophical differences? Huge philosophical differences. And they cannot talk about bipartisanship, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very good.
Because everything for them boils down into that. Everything boils down to grandstanding. Everything boils down to, let's get the votes now. We'll give you this. You want to sell the road, your vegetables in the middle of the road? We'll give it to you. You want to build your home there on land that's not yours? Go for it. As long as you vote for me.
Time is up.
That's, Mr. Speaker, sir, is what they're doing. And let's not kid ourselves. There needs to be a philosophical meeting of minds. Honorable Nawekula, Honorable Kurindrani, all personalizing matters. We used to it. Honorable Tambuya, in the Sodelpa email group, saying that I brought coronavirus to Fiji. Your people leaked the emails to us. We need to sort that out. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. So how can we progress in terms of bipartisanship, Mr. Speaker, sir? So, Mr. Speaker, sir, the reality of the matter is, getting back to the actual, the motion itself, the approval by Parliament of this guarantee to FDB is nothing extraordinary. It is the norm. It will allow FDB to go out and lend more in the market. I think some of the members of the opposition have said, and others from our side have said also, that gives FDB the capacity to go out and raise funds in the market and to also lend. And we do agree. We need to spur on investment. We need to spur on consumption. We need to ensure that the small businesses actually stay alive. And they have been affected. There's no doubt about that. If you look at every single country in the world, no developing country in the world has successfully done massive lockdowns. None. Because the economic realities of those countries are extremely different to the first world countries. Completely different. So we have to be able to learn to work within this particular specific period. We cannot have, as we said in the business committee meeting, the politicization of the pandemic. It is not helpful. We need to build confidence in our people, and the only way we do that is have targeted assistance, at the same time managing our health concerns, the protocols, and the new way of looking at things. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would urge all members of Parliament to unanimously vote for this particular guarantee. Thank you.
Honourable members, I thank the Honourable Attorney-General and Minister for Economy, Civil Service and Communications for his reply.